I grew up in the rural suburbs of Ohio, and I will tell you, if there was ever a kids franchise people in my area loved, it was the Toy Story movies. Pretty much everyone I knew grew up watching them, and had all the toys at their house as well. Being so into all this Toy Story stuff, I came across numerous urban legends about the franchise every now and then. Definitely the scariest one I've ever heard was about the Woody doll that would say, "Friend inside me," instead of the actual words it was supposed to say. They never actually figured out why it was said to people, but I have at least 2 different friends who claim they know someone who saw it happen, personally, whatever that's worth. Now apparently this wasn't your ordinary Woody doll that you could just find in a toy store. It was said to be one of a kind, a handmade prototype from one of the testing teams at Disney. The way I always heard it told was that a young kid named Elliot got the toy for his birthday one year. His parents found it at a yard sale, nestled among forgotten relics and dusty antiques. The seller, an elderly man with a wary look in his eyes, warned them that the toy was different.
"He's got a friend inside him,"
he said cryptically, but Elliot's parents dismissed it as the ramblings of a senile old man. Elated, Elliot welcomed Woody into his home, when his parents brought it back to the house later that evening. At first, Woody seemed like a great present, considering it was a one-of-a-kind prototype. They thought it was probably worth something too, so Elliot's parents always made sure to tell him to not be too rough with it, in case he ever wanted to sell it someday. Although before long he started to notice strange occurrences happening in his room, nearby where the doll would be placed. It would appear in places he hadn't left it, and sometimes in the dead of night, he would wake to the sound of soft whispers, as if somebody was speaking to him in strange tongues from the darkness of the room. Then one night, Elliot awoke to find Woody sitting at the foot of his bed, gazing at him with his black, lifeless eyes, just staring through his soul. Then, in a voice that was not quite human, and from a location that couldn't really be determined, Elliot heard,
"Friend inside me."
Frozen with fear, Elliot could only stare in disbelief before running into his parents' room screaming. After that, things just started to get worse and worse. The next supernatural activity occurred with Elliot's mom's collectible figurines. Each day a new one would be broken and shattered all over the floor, with one letter from Elliot's name written in crayon beside it. Until on the 6th day, the letters revealed his full name to his parents. He of course was grounded for this, and it made him realize he had to take drastic action. Elliot then got a metal trough from his garage, filled it with twigs and lighter fluid, brought it outside, and tossed the Woody doll into it, lighting it ablaze. As he stood there and watched the doll burn, he felt a momentary surge of relief. However, that feeling was short-lived, because Woody was right back in Elliot's room that very same night, sitting on top of his bed like nothing had happened. The impossibility of the situation gripped him with a fear so intense he didn't know what to do. When Elliot's father came in to check on him, he saw that Elliot was pretty much having a panic attack, curled up in the corner of his room. At this point, he started to believe his son's story as well, and decided he was going to help him get rid of the doll. They set out to return it to the elderly man who had sold it to them, hoping he might take it back or at least have some knowledge to help destroy it. When they arrived, the neighborhood seemed unchanged, and as they approached the old man's house, a sense of unease hung in the air. The house looked abandoned, the garden overgrown, and no signs of life within. Disheartened, they walked up to the door, and after they knocked, they noticed a note pinned to the window, addressed to the buyer of the Woody doll. With a mixture of dread and curiosity, Elliot's father carefully removed the note and began to read aloud. The handwriting was shaky, but the message was clear.
"By the time you read this, I will have moved away, unable to face the consequences of my actions any longer. I had the doll for approximately 1 year, and it was sold to me similar to how I sold it to you. It was responsible for the loss of my wife, and had moved on to my son and grandchildren. I know this was a selfish act, but a person can only take so much. It doesn't seem like there's a way to rid yourself of the doll. I thought I had found solutions many times, but I was always wrong. The only advice I can offer is to let it have what it wants, when it wants it. Most likely, if you let it be, soon enough you can sell it to someone else as well. I am truly sorry.
Elliot and his father stood in stunned silence, the note trembling in the breeze. The finality of the old man's words, the admission of guilt and helplessness, left them with more questions than answers. What was contained within the doll? And more importantly, what were they supposed to do now? As they processed the grim note, Elliot's father folded the paper, tucking it away in his pocket, a heavy sigh escaping him. The realization that they were now tethered to this cursed object, with no clear path to rid themselves of its malevolence, was a weight neither of them were prepared to carry. They returned home, the doll once again occupying a space in Elliot's room, because that was what it seemed to want. As the days and weeks wore on, Elliot began to treat it like any of his other toys, even showing his friends sometimes the odd and interesting trick of the Woody doll saying, "Friend inside me." Not too far after, the boy ended up going missing, and the police never could put their finger on what happened to him. It seemed as if he had just vanished out of thin air. Eventually his parents up and left the house as well, leaving all the items to be sold off in an estate sale. Apparently people from town who went to that sale saw the Woody doll sitting there, among all the other household items, his lifeless eyes gazing at them, just waiting for the next family to bring him home.